For this beautiful day, we have VANI Gupta. She's a marketing director, Indian Snacks, Foods, PepsiCo India, passionate marketeer, innovation specialist, and change agent. Listed by Business Today as the honest young executives under 40 in 2015 in a nationwide survey. Amongst the 100 most influential marketing leaders listed by the World Marketing Congress for 2016, won the India Region Above and Beyond 2014 Chairman's Award from Indriya Nui for successfully building a new platform of growth for Pepsi Foods in 2014, won the Innovation Excellence Award 2013 and the AMEA PWP Sustained Performance Award. I could go on and on. She's currently working with PepsiCo India as a marketing director on India Snacks. It's been 6 years. Ladies and gentlemen, can you put our hands together for VANI Gupta?
So, for being such a wonderful audience. Ambi gave a fantastic presentation and I had the privilege of hearing most of it and it was really, really entertaining. Thank you so much. It's a very tough bench that he set, I was telling him. So, I'm here to talk about brand authenticity. And before I start, I want to show you a small video on what brand authenticity is not.
Hey. Hey babes. What's up? Cool. See you in 15. Ciao.
Hi, Babs. What's up? Cool. See you in 15. Ciao. Ciao.
MP3 प्लेयर और 2 GB एक्सपेंडेबल मेमोरी के साथ नया मोटो युवा W270 स्टाइल ऐसा अब झूमेंगे सब. Hello Moto.
So with that, I just wanted to make a point that when brands pretend to be what they're not, then they come across as being as ridiculous as that dad over there, of which, that dad's been made such a parody of. So, coming to brand authenticity, I think we should rewind to what is a brand. A brand is defined by the place it occupies in the hearts and minds of its consumers. And what gives a brand the license to occupy that place in the hearts and minds of its consumers? It is the exchange of a currency called trust. And trust, at its most fundamental, is authenticity. So brand authenticity, very simply put, is nothing but honesty. When a brand is authentic, the question one asks is it true to its core values? Is it true to its core values in every single interaction with its consumers? Is it true to its core values even in its own internal workings? Is it motivated by care and responsibility towards the consumers so that it supports consumers to also be true to themselves? That's brand authenticity. So when I was researching this topic and preparing for this talk, I found that there were more than 17 million articles on Google. In less than a second, it threw up more than 17 million articles. And why would there be such a huge knowledge bank on this subject on Google? I think it's probably because we're all struggling with this concept of brand authenticity. So I found these funny cartoons and I thought, let me just put this up as a reflection of probably what's going on in the minds of a lot of marketers, which is you want to appeal to this large millennial youth segment and you don't really know how to do that and you're desperate to find some sort of a connect with them. The reason why authenticity has become so important today is because fundamentally, the world over, there is a huge trust crisis. And this is true of not just brands and marketing. This is true even outside the world of brands and marketing, but I'll spare you that moan. Essentially, today consumers don't trust us anymore as much. So as per an article in Huffington Post, apparently less than 1% consumers actually make a purchase decision based on the advertising that they see. Less than 1%. And I don't know what the numbers are for India, but my sense is that overall the theme holds true. And the reason for that is that there are just way too many brands, there are just way too many advertisements. And we're bombarded with so many messages that the consumer is growing more and more skeptical. The consumer doesn't know what to believe. So what does the consumer do? She turns to sources of trust, which is her own friends, which could be consumer reviews online. But when she does that, there is a huge plethora of information. In fact, there's so much information that the very anxiety that she went online to alleviate by finding information, she finds that she's actually even more anxious, because too much information also causes a lot of anxiety. And what does one do in all of this? Essentially, it leaves the consumer extremely confused. And in this scenario, brand authenticity becomes more crucial than ever. Now, all of this information about anxiety or the trust deficiency would have been meaningless if this mass segment of millennials, as we call them, were just free-living college goers, you know, and if they were just bobbing from one class to another, and they were just binge-watching Netflix, you know, and had no other meaning for us as marketers, we'd be fine. But unfortunately, this large segment also makes up for the largest voting population. They're also the largest workforce. So as per an article, you know, published very recently in March in the Financial Express, apparently at the age of 29, at an average age of 29, India will be the youngest country in the world in 2020. That poses a huge challenge for us as marketers, because we now have the challenge of appealing to this large workforce. Add to that the smartphone penetration, the increasing internet connectivity, the increasing disposable incomes, and boom, it's a really difficult job for us as marketers, because A, we have to grab their attention, and B, we have to convert that trust into sales. First, we have to establish a relationship of trust and then convert it to sales. So, the fact is today millennials are not wowed by big promises. They're not wowed by big flashy ads. How does then one appeal to these millennials? Because for millennials, money is not as important. They're looking for more meaning. They're looking for authentic experiences. They're looking for authentic interactions. They're looking for authentic brands. Today, millennials, you find, will turn down $1 million salaries because they'd be happier to work for something that's more to do with the betterment of society. They want flexibility. They want meaning. In all of this, it becomes even more critical for brands to be authentic. So how does a brand be authentic? So I came across this very simple, very well-written article in Forbes. It was written very recently, which gave us some pointers on what is brand authenticity. So there were some 4 or 5 pointers over there. The first was, a brand must be honest. The cliche that a brand must communicate to its consumers like it were a person has never been more true before. One has to be true to oneself. Brands have to communicate almost as though they're humanizing the brand. Brands have to communicate like a person. They have to tell stories. They have to engage. Second, brands must be transparent. Have the courage to open the doors to your consumers. Have the courage to draw them in. So I work on a brand called Kurkure. And you know, Kurkure has been plagued by some malicious rumors, and these rumors pop up from time to time again. And we find that whenever we do find this upsurge of rumors, we take all of these rumor mongers, we take a lot of these nuisance makers, as we can identify them, we take them to our plants and to our factories to show them how Kurkure is really made. We show them that Kurkure is made of asli dal corn rice. That wasn't meant to be a plug, but essentially, you know, it is to demonstrate the fact that being authentic also in some part means being vulnerable, you know, opening your doors to vulnerability in some sense. The third is just being true to the brand. And again, being true to the brand is a huge challenge today for marketers. You know, a CMO's job is more difficult than ever because today a CMO has to deal with so many different agencies. There are many different creatives. Media is getting more and more fragmented. In all of this, one has to make sure, the CMO has to make sure that the reins of the brand are held very tightly by him or her, so that the brand doesn't feel like a schizophrenic brand in all of these different creatives and, you know, being handled by as many different agencies, because that is the reality of today's marketing. Brands must also be very direct and calm when one makes a mistake, when brands make mistakes. And we've got lots of examples. One of the examples that comes to my mind is that of Volkswagen. If you do make a mistake, make an apology that's really heartfelt and that's really simple and direct. Consumers appreciate that and they forgive you for that, and they move on. And lastly, show them that you care. Today, consumers look for brands that genuinely care. Let brands come across as brands that are not just looking to make a quick buck, but brands that genuinely wish to add meaning to consumers' lives. So there was this global Nielsen study which was done in 2015, and it found that across all global brands, when they mapped global sales and the average rate of growth of global sales of these big brands, they found that brands that demonstrated a commitment to sustainability actually saw an average growth of 4% or more versus brands that did not. And brands that did not had an average sale of 1% or less. Similarly, consumers in 2016, 66% consumers in 2016 actually stated that they would be happy to pay more for goods and services that were intended for the betterment of society, versus only 50% in 2013. These are all staggering statistics. They tell you that there is a certain movement of the society in a direction where brands must align themselves. So that's a long spiel. With that, I want to show you one case study called Mirinda. It's a PepsiCo brand. It's a lovely case study and it's won a Cannes this year. I'll show you that, and I'd love to hear from you what you think.
के महीनों में मेरे अदरवाइज लविंग पेरेंट्स में एक अनुकूल सा परिवर्तन आता है। मम्मी राउटर छुपाती है, पापा डिश को डिसलोकेट करते हैं और टैबलेट को कुशन में दफनाया जाता है। इस मेटिकुलस स्ट्राइक का कारण है एग्जाम्स का प्रेशर, बट वेयर देयर इज प्रेशर इट मस्ट बी रिलीज्ड। तो मॉम डैड रिजाइन प्लीज। मिरिंडा का सिप लेती नो प्रेशर बनती।
No pressure, pressure बनती, no pressure बनती, no 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 pressure बनती।
क्योंकि हैप्पी माइंड से पढ़ाई भी होती है मजे से पूरी, इसलिए थोड़ी पागलपंती इससे जरूरी। No 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 pressure बनती।
So this was actually the ad. I want to just rewind a bit and I want to show you the case study. But the point of this ad is that, you know, while the theme is release the pressure, this ad, which is actually tackling a very, very solemn subject in some ways, is also crafted in a way that's true to the brand values. This brand has always been about Pagalpanti. You know, it's a bit of a mad humor brand. And what I love about this commercial is that one never thought that one could pick up a subject like this and Mirindize it, you know. And what this ad has done has shown to us that the message can be presented to the consumers in a manner that is still true to the brand's core values, that's still true to the brand's personality. Now I want to show you the case study.
Is one of the leading causes of depression and suicidal tendencies among teens in India. Every hour, a young life is lost because of this.
Parents put so much pressure on the kids about marks that it almost ends up bottling up and makes the child not communicate so much with the parent.
However, in February 2017, a month before the annual exams, when pressure on the students is at its peak, Mirinda, a playful PepsiCo beverage, stepped forward to give students a voice. The brand launched Release the Pressure, a nationwide campaign to bring the issue out in the open. It all started with Mirinda urging students to write open letters to their parents. As the letters poured in, the brand released a hard-hitting digital film.
Dear Amma and Appa, you know I am very shy, and it has taken a lot of courage to write this letter, so please listen to me.
It triggered a nationwide debate, an outpouring of empathy. The brand then did the unthinkable. It turned its 11 million bottles into media. Authentic open letters appeared on all Mirinda bottles. Mirinda then underlined its commitment with an action, the bottle cap. The cap became an iconic symbol of the movement and an instrument of social activism and change. Then, on the opening day of India's biggest exams, 2.75 million stickers were released in the newspapers for parents to show their resolve. Psychologists joined the campaign to offer free advice online to parents and students. India connected with a message. Consumer engagement went up 1,100%. Over 193 media articles were covered, and the film was viewed 35 million times in just 1 month. 1.57 million parents pledged to release the pressure, making Mirinda the most loved brand for teens, an unlikely agent of change for millions of teenagers.
So here is another example of a brand. It's a huge powerhouse brand for the youth, and this brand has celebrated real heroes. These are ordinary people with extraordinary stories who've taken extraordinary risks to make a name for themselves. And what I love about this brand is that you know, it has been able to genuinely instigate youth to make a name for themselves. You know, when translated in Hindi, it's औकात है कि नहीं. So I just love that expression, and this is a brand that's it's a very Hindi heartland brand. So when this translates into that expression of औकात, it translates into a very powerful sentiment. So this brand has celebrated through with these stories, and they featured all of these real heroes on their bottles, which is what they look like. This is what they look like. So, you know, the challenge for marketers to appeal to millennials is a huge challenge. And the fact is that there is so much pressure to appeal to millennials, and not all CMOs are necessarily millennials, including me, who is not. You're always challenging yourself to stay a step ahead, to stay a trend ahead of the millennials. And sometimes brands under that pressure resort to an overdose of creative techniques that they feel might work with the youth. And sometimes they end up really falling flat on their faces. And I've got some examples for you. These are just a few of the examples. There were a whole lot of examples on the internet. But you see this wine that's tried, you know, these really strange, great, I mean, you don't expect to see this on a Riesling or a Pinot Noir, you know, it just doesn't go with a wine. Or this, this car launch, one can't make out what this is about at all. So I think the challenge is, how does one talk to millennials and talk to them in such a way that's appealing and that's yet in tune with the brand's own core values? Because a brand doesn't necessarily have to be a brand that speaks the same language, and yet it must be a brand that appeals to them. So I have this lovely example of a beer brand that I think has done this very well.